The insistent buzz of my phone pulled me from the depths of my despair, the late evening light filtering through the half-drawn curtains, splattering soft orange rays on the cluttered tabletop. I stared down at the screen, my heart sinking as I recognized the name flashing back at me. It was not the call I wanted. I would have preferred silence. But this voice was part of my reality, erupting into my cocoon of denial and forcing me to confront what I had always believed was a tight-knit family bond. Taking a deep breath, I answered, attempting to mask the tremor of anxiety in my voice. "Hello," I said, each syllable feeling heavy, testing the waters of familial betrayal. The voice on the other end, my sibling, sounded upbeat, too casual, considering the evening was dragging me lower. "Hey, you won't believe the day I had," the voice chirped, laughter twinged with an air of arrogance that made the hairs on my neck stand. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I leaned against the wall, the cool surface pressing against my back, grounding me. I wanted to ask what day could possibly seem worth celebrating when I could hardly tell the difference between night and day, my modest job barely keeping the wolves at bay. The pretense wore thin as I mumbled, "Sure, what's up?" "Oh, I got a new credit card today," they exclaimed, a victorious lilt in their tone. And that's when it struck me like a lightning bolt, my thoughts racing wildly, stumbling into dark corners I never expected to peer into. A new credit card, just a painted badge for someone who was already drowning. I felt my mouth go dry. "Is that wise?" I forced out through the tight tension in my chest, trying to sound composed. "How much do you already have?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. I did not need to guess. I had overheard snippets of conversations during the past few weeks, half-finished words that hitched in my throat. There was so much I did not know. "Relax, I have it all under control." The defensiveness was evident, cutting through the fake cheer like a knife through butter. "I mean, everyone carries a little debt, right? Little debt." The stark contrast between our situations had never been so glaring. I had been clinging to hope, waiting for that fleeting moment when my parents would stop singling them out, showering them with unconditional love while I wore the mask of the neglected sibling. "What do you mean by under control? You have no idea how much support you're swinging away from us." My voice raised, pouring forth frustration I had bottled up too long, feeling the walls of my brain spinning. $50,000, how could you let it get this far? It was surreal, an otherworldly moment where I anxiously anticipated their response, wanting clarity but fearing the truth. "That's just numbers, Mia. It has nothing to do with you," they retorted, the unconcerned tone slicing through my resolve. The use of my name felt like a cold slap. It surprised me more than it should have. I could less believe the nonchalance than the reality of the betrayal, sitting there in silence as I struggled to breathe through the weight of the truth enveloping me. The lamp glowed dully, its light flickering as if mirroring the tumult of thoughts swirling in my mind. I had been allowing myself to be their support for far too long, the one carrying our family's burdens, but all along they had taken advantage of my trust and goodwill for their reckless pursuits. My mind flooded with images of the lavish lifestyle they had undoubtedly been weaving while I struggled to keep my head above water. A shadow danced at the edges of my sanity, whispering dark thoughts I had ignored for way too long. "You tired of the charade?" The question escaped me before I could choke it down. "You are dragging us under with you." Finally, silence exploded between us, and the relentless heartbeat in my ears echoed louder than ever. The flickering fluorescent bulb overhead seemed to waver as the air turned thick. I sensed my siblings' hesitation as if the floors shifted beneath our feet. It made my heart race in the chaos of the moment. Uncertainty filled the once charming air, but their indifference remained rooted like stubborn weeds in an unkempt garden. I pressed on, emboldened by the venom coursing through my veins. "I have been supporting you, thinking we were in this together, and yet this is how you repay me. I thought you would have understood by now." Their voice was hollow, stripped of warmth. "We cannot all live your kind of life. It's so boring. I just want a taste of what life could be." A taste. The bitterness bubbled up from my throat. How could they justify what felt so grotesque, to bury their brave heart under layers of extravagant expenses while I wore the bruises of sweat and work, by digging our family deeper into a hole, all while our parents slap you on the back like you just won an award? "Maybe if you had a little more fun in your life, you would not need to worry so much," they replied, sarcasm lacing their words like poison. My fingernails dug into my palms as I tried to keep my composure. "Fun? Is that what you call charging expensive dinners on cards, racking up debts you refuse to own up to? When do you think it stops? What happens when the collections agencies come knocking at our door?" My breath grew heavier, each word a sharp jab through thin air as I began to untangle the web they had woven with our family name, thread by thread. "Seriously, Mia, you worry too much," they brushed off, their voice dismissive as if we were discussing the weather instead of the fractures forming in the very fabric of our family. "They're just numbers on a screen." I was no longer listening. The rage boiling inside blocked out any sense of reason. So much trust had been shattered, ripped to pieces in that insignificant little moment, and now I could not hold on to this image of family togetherness any longer. "It has everything to do with me, you know it does. I cannot just sit back and ignore the truth anymore. This is unreal." A chilling laugh drifted through the line. It echoed in my ears, haunted slow and steady like dreadful footsteps down a darkened hall. Look, if it bothers you so much, maybe you should just leave me out of it. Figure this out myself. The finality in their tone hit hard. There was no empathy, no acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, no concern for what they were dragging everyone into. Their colossal ego had dampened the last embers of loyalty I had clung to, snuffing out the flickering light. Figure it out, I struck back, voice now firm as the revelation settled like sharp glass in my chest. Do you plan to take all of us with you when this explodes in your face? This kind of thinking, it will ruin you. I'm fine, they shot back assertively, a sudden momentum of bravado roaring like a lion. And to be honest, I don't need your pity. A suffocating silence shifted between us once more, time slowing to a crawl. I could feel sorrow washing over like a thunderstorm, drenching me in its cold embrace. I had so foolishly believed that we were partners in this battle we call life. Each confession had been a facade woven from trust, and I had cherished every word as a promise. I stood in my small, dimly lit room. Shock began to settle in deeper. It dulls the edges but sharpens the wounds. All this love and support you get, I managed breathlessly, emotions running rampant. You took it all without even batting an eyelash while I hung there waiting for just a single lifeline. A wave of heat flooded my face as the betrayal stitched an ever-deepening anxiety in my heart. Their selfishness felt unforgivable, like a thorn buried in the fabric of who I thought we were as a family. The incredulity hanging between us morphed into something more pungent, a hunger for vengeance, a protective instinct clawing from deep within me. I'm done covering your mistakes. I will not be a part of your plans anymore. Without waiting for a response, I hung up the phone. The click reverberated in my empty apartment as the overwhelming weight of realization cascaded over me. The love I had known was eclipsed by deception. I felt shattered like a mirror splintered into 1,000 flickering fragments, slipping away yet fiercely longing for justice. As the silence wrapped heavily around me, I understood something new and dangerous. I could no longer sit back and be the neglected shadow. Somewhere deep inside, a storm was brewing, whispering that the world owed me. Revenge was on the horizon, and I could either retreat into darkness or emerge to reclaim what I had lost. It was about time I lit the spark that would ultimately guide me from this suffocating abyss. With my heart pounding fiercely in my chest, I sat down at my cluttered desk, my fingers brushing against a fresh sheet of paper as ideas began pouring forth. I could not let this betrayal go unanswered. I would craft a plan, sharp and precise, and as I wrote down each detail, a sly smile crept across my face, illuminating the shadows that had long haunted me. I stood in the living room of our home, the familiarity of the space clawing at my chest as the early evening light filtered in through the heavy curtains. Shadows flickered on the walls like my rapidly fraying nerves. Desperation clawed at me, an urgent beast gnawing at my insides. I couldn't ignore the whirlwind of chaos brewing around me any longer. My siblings' reckless spending, the lies I was drowning in, and the mounting pressure from creditors demanding payments for debts I had never even incurred all pulled me deeper into a pit of dread. I steeled myself, instinctively shifting my weight between my feet, wondering how this had all happened. Why could no one see the mess that was developing? Mom, Dad, can we talk? I asked tentatively, the words sticking in my throat like a bitter pill. It felt strange to ask, as though I were bargaining for their attention. The kitchen was just around the corner, the scent of my mother's signature casserole hanging in the air. I could almost hear the comforting clatter of dishes, the cheerful hum she always carried with her, but now it felt like a world apart from my reality. My parents turned towards me, my father raising an eyebrow, while my mother wiped her hands on a dish towel. Mia, we're kind of busy right now, my father responded, glancing back at his newspaper sprawled across the table, as if he genuinely believed that life's worries could be absorbed through the words on the page. Busy with what exactly? I felt a spark ignite in my chest. Their indifference struck me like a slap. Busy overlooking the fact that my sibling is spending money like it grows on trees while I am left here to deal with the fallout. You don't see it, do you? The debt collector's calling me day and night, demanding payments for things I didn't even buy. It's all because of your sibling is under a lot of stress right now, my mother cut in, shaking her head vigorously. You know that, they need our support more than you need to criticize them for this. They are just going through a hard time. I stared at her in disbelief. How could they not see what was happening? You're choosing to support their reckless behavior over my concerns. Do you not understand the weight of these debts, the strain it has put on me? I feel like I'm being suffocated. You need to understand that this is not about you, my father snapped, finally laying his newspaper down. We need to help them. They don't know how to manage their finances yet, but they will learn. You need to calm down, calm down. My pulse raced, a wild drum in my ears. It felt like a betrayal, like being stabbed in the back by the very people who were supposed to defend me. So what? I'm just supposed to sit here and watch while my sibling takes everything, living in luxury while I drown in debt. You cannot possibly think this is right. I know it's hard, but we cannot abandon them in their time of need, my mother insisted, her voice soft but firm. You will understand when you're older. Oh, I know I'm older, I spat, shoes digging into the floor as if I could root myself to the truth. Older and tired of making excuses for someone who doesn't care about anyone but themselves. Oh, come on, is that really how you feel? My father shot back, irritation weaving through his voice. You're blowing this out of proportion, Mia. You need to be more supportive. The words settled around me heavily, each one thickening the air until I felt I might drown in it. Supportive, is that all you believe I am to be? A silent witness to the chaos. I took a deep breath, realization dawning that my parents were not going to budge. Forget it, I muttered, turning on my heel. I barely managed to suppress the urge to storm out of the house to escape the confines of their blind loyalty. Hunched over my computer an hour later, I tried to drown my thoughts in emails and spreadsheets, but it was like pouring water over a fire. The flames of frustration only roared higher. The constant ringing of my phone cut through my concentration, a shrill reminder of the chaos outside my small world. I glanced down at the screen and saw the name of yet another creditor flashing ominously. I felt my heart leap into my throat. "Hello," I answered, my voice steady despite the growing dread in my belly. "Mia Bennett, this is the credit agency," the voice on the other end announced, cold and demanding. "We need to discuss your outstanding balance immediately. You are at risk of defaulting on your account." "What do you mean outstanding balance? I never. Debts don't simply disappear, Miss Bennett. You need to settle these payments or face consequences." The line went dead. I slammed the phone down, anger swirling inside me like a tornado. It was all so unjust, reminding me of everything that had built up over the weeks, relentless and unforgiving. As I sat there, quiet anger began to settle in my gut, twisting and squeezing. How could they, the people I shared blood with, be so naive, so blind to the truth? With my fingers trembling, I opened a dusty box that had sat neglected in the corner of my room for years. I hadn't touched it since we'd moved in, yet it seemed appropriate to dig through the past while contemplating my siblings' deluded present. One by one, I pulled out old notebooks and framed photographs until a stack of papers slipped out, cascading onto the floor like falling leaves. As I bent to retrieve them, my stomach dropped. Documents unfolded revealing a litany of lavish vacations to tropical islands, receipts for expensive dinners, and bills for designer clothes. Each piece of paper fell into my hands like evidence against a traitor, weighing down heavily with years of emotional cost. The glowing thrill of adventure versus my harsh reality was glaringly stark, each item a reminder of my siblings' wastefulness while I was left to bear the burden alone. "Unbelievable," I whispered, gripping the edge of the cardboard box as I felt my breath catch in my throat. Anger boiled within me as each ink-stained confession layered itself in my mind. Sneaking trips to Miami while I struggled to scrape together pennies. Buying a new purse that was probably worth more than my entire wardrobe while I debated taking out loans. My heart raced with every new detail, fueling a fire that stoked revenge high like a bright beacon. "This is not fair," I felt a searing bitterness flap against my insides. My sibling was everything I wished to be, free and unchained, yet I was responsible for cleaning up the mess they created. "You have wasted everything," I said aloud to no one but the empty room. "And you don't know it, you don't realize what you've done." Frustration consumed me as my cries for help echoed in the quiet halls of our home, the words ricocheting off the walls with chilling clarity. "I won't just let this go," I promised to the dusty air. "You think you can walk all over me, don't you? But I will show you. You can pay for everything and then some." That moment, the sensation of icy resolve crept into my chest, wrapping around my heart with a ruthless certainty. I sat in the dim light, surrounded by deceit and the remnants of dreams tossed aside, and a plan began to churn in the depths of my mind, a dark idea taking shape. No more hiding. No more being treated like I was the one causing trouble, while the real issues were allowed to fester. I could become the storm they would not see coming. A plan of revenge born from the ashes of betrayal. The day had begun like any other. The sun streamed through the window, casting warm, golden rays across the room. I moved through my morning rituals mechanically, barely aware of the world around me. Coffee brewed, the scent bitter but familiar, as I prepared to face another day of work that had become more a distraction than a joy. My heart raced as I headed outside to check the mailbox. I had been trying to ignore the rising dread in my chest, but deep down I knew something was coming. Every time I opened that box, a small part of me hoped for something uplifting, like a letter from a friend or a card from a distant relative. But instead, I was met with yet another bill. And this time, it was a bill demanding payment of over $5,000 for a credit card I had no idea even existed. As I stood there, the cold metal of the mailbox biting into my palm, my mind raced back to the last few months. I thought of those sleepless nights spent worrying about finances, battling stress that seemed to seep into every corner of my life. I had been trying to pick up the pieces, but it felt as if I was constantly being pushed back into the dark by someone I had trusted. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was my siblings' doing. "Why are they doing this to me?" I muttered under my breath, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and betrayal. The creamy white envelope in my hand felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I crumpled the letter in my fist, feeling a knot form in my throat. My parents must think I am some kind of monster. They don't even know the whole story. The walls felt like they were closing in around me, physical manifestations of the emotional turmoil raging inside. I stormed into my siblings' room, fueled by a raw mix of rage and desperation. The energy in the house shifted as I approached the door, every step toward that room feeling both heavy and liberating. I felt the hardwood floor creak beneath my feet, a signal of the power struggle that was about to unfold. I threw open the door, my anger spilling out in a single breath. "What have you done?" I demanded, my voice bordering on a shriek. There they sat on their bed, surrounded by piles of clothes and an assortment of scattered school textbooks. The walls were painted a faded blue, suggesting a distant childhood, themes of innocence long gone. "Why would you do this to me?" They turned to look at me, that infuriating smirk forming on their lips. It was as if I had just told a joke and they found the punchline ridiculous. "Oh, come on now," they laughed, and their voice dripped with contempt. "You're really going to make a scene over a little debt? You should have known better than to ignore your finances." "A little debt?" I shook my head, my hands trembling. "This isn't just a little debt. This is a crushing weight that could ruin my life." I could feel the panic swelling in my chest, anger shooting through me like an electric current. "You've turned my parents against me. They think I'm irresponsible. They think I'm some kind of loser." "Oh, please, spare me the dramatics," they replied coolly, their laughter echoing in my ears like an ugly melody. "You've always been the favorite. I just thought it was time you experienced a little of the world's reality." I felt my heart race, frustration bubbling beneath the surface like a boiling pot. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" I accused, every word heavy with disbelief. "You wanted to make me look bad in front of everyone." "It's not my fault you're so easily manipulated," they chuckled, throwing their hands up in mock innocence. The venom in their tone made me recoil. "Maybe if you spent less time playing the victim, you would have realized that you were bound to make mistakes. And what better way to learn than to suffer the consequences?" I felt the last remnants of trust splinter in that moment, the sound of breaking glass echoing throughout the room. "How could you do this to me? We're family," I practically screamed, the words tasting bitter and foreign as they left my lips. My stomach twisted into fundamental knots, the betrayal stinging deep within. They leaned back against the wall, arms crossed smugly as if savoring the moment. "Family, is that what you think we are?" "Agtag team of support. I see a relationship built on favoritism, and that needs to change. You'll thank me one day. You'll realize how weak you've made yourself all these years." Weak, the word ignited a fire in my belly, making the color rise to my cheeks. "I've been strong, I've apologized, I've worked hard, I've tried to keep this family together through all the nonsense. But you think this is a game, don't you?" They rolled their eyes, brimming with scorn. "Oh, how sweet, but nice try, you're embarrassing yourself." The laughter returned, cruel and unyielding. "You should have fought back when Mom and Dad doubted you. Instead, you cowered, and look where it's gotten you, stuck paying for debts that aren't even yours." Then I heard it, the unsettling sense of clarity overpowering the chaos around me. Right then, the truth hit me like a thunderbolt. Enduring humiliation, panic, and sleepless nights had pushed me to this moment, but it was this betrayal that truly broke me. The anger that had been simmering within morphed into something darker, something potent. I was done being the victim of their machinations. "Just wait," I threatened, my voice low and trembling with rage. "You think this is over? You have no idea what I will do to get my life back." My heart skipped a beat, feeling the power of revenge spark within. "Oh, please," they laughed again, rolling their eyes dramatically. "What are you going to do? Write me a nasty letter? Cry to our parents? You don't have a chance." I stepped closer, the air thick with tension, and I could see the glimmer of doubt in their expression, if only for a brief moment. "You know what, you're right. I'm done crying. I'm done being pushed around and laughed at. I will make you pay for what you have done," I declared, my voice a blend of defiance and determination, each word resonating through the room like a battle cry. Their laughter faded, and an uncomfortable silence filled the space between us. For a brief moment, I could see the uncertainty flicker across their face, a spark of fear that reinforced my resolve. This was no longer just about money or a damaged reputation. This was about reclaiming my power in a family that had scrutinized my every move and turned my own blood against me. As I turned to leave the room, a plan began to saturate my thoughts. I felt alive with purpose and determination, fueled by a burning desire for retribution. "You think you can destroy me? You have no idea what I am capable of," I spoke softly yet firmly as I walked out, each word laced with venom. The air felt charged with my new mission. It would take careful planning and deliberate action, but I would no longer allow the weight of their betrayal to suffocate me. I felt rising hope wash over me, a promise of justice that was both thrilling and terrifying. I was finished being the helpless sister lost in their game of manipulation. The darkness they had fed me was about to be met with an equally powerful light, a light of vengeance that promised to illuminate my path toward justice. As I stepped outside, the fresh air washed over my skin, tinged with the scent of blooming flowers and opportunity. This was no ordinary day. This was the beginning of my reclamation, my rise against the treachery that sought to keep me down. The final straw had shattered the illusion of our family bond, and now the game was on. I would emerge victorious, and they would soon come to understand the price of their deceit. I had planned this night to perfection. The aroma of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes wafted through the house, mingling with the sweet scent of cinnamon from the pumpkin pie cooling on the windowsill. I stood in the kitchen, my heart racing with excitement and a hint of anxiety. This was it, the night I had orchestrated to unveil my siblings' lies. Family members would fill the dining room, laughter and chatter would echo through the halls, but at the end of the night, everything would change. I glanced at the table where I had meticulously arranged the evidence against my sibling, bank statements, photographs showcasing their lavish lifestyle, all poised like pawns ready for a checkmate. The flickering candles cast soft shadows, almost like they were dancing to the nervous rhythm of my heartbeat. My phone buzzed on the countertop. It was a message from one of the extended family members saying they were on their way. I took a deep breath to center myself and flipped my hair over my shoulder, rehearsing my speech in my mind. As the doorbell rang with a cheerful chime, I glanced at the clock to find that it was time to put my plan into motion. "You ready for this?" I mumbled to myself, the question lingering in the air like a whisper. I stepped toward the door, opening it to greet my aunt and uncle, their smiles warm, oblivious to the storm that was about to unfold. "Come in, dinner is almost ready," I said, ushering them into the living room where the family photographs hung proudly on the wall. "Mia, it smells wonderful in here," my aunt exclaimed, her eyes lighting up as she took in the cozy atmosphere. Just behind them, my parents arrived, and a subtle shift in the room occurred as they entered. My mother's eyes swept toward the kitchen, taking in the table decorated with my carefully crafted evidence, but I kept my expression neutral. "Is everyone coming?" my father asked, setting his jacket down on a chair. "Yes, everyone's on their way, just a small family gathering," I replied, even though everyone knew the underlying tension that had been brewing for years. As I filled the air with small talk, leaving the real intent of the evening simmering just beneath the surface, the living room filled with the comforting buzz of laughter. Every laugh rang in my ears, a sharp contrast to the dread that loomed inside me. I caught glances across the room, sometimes locking eyes with my sibling, who wore their signature confident grin. That smile, so carefree and boastful, only fueled my fire. My hands trembled slightly. The anticipation of revealing the truth made my palms sweaty. "Mia, did you hear about the new cafe downtown?" a cousin asked, broken from my thoughts. "Not yet, I have been busy with work," I said, trying to stay engaged in the conversation while keeping one eye on my sibling, who was busy charming everyone in the room. The idea of them basking in their facade made my stomach churn. As the doorbell rang again, more family members arrived. I exchanged pleasantries with each, welcoming them into my well-curated world of deception. The atmosphere thickened, laughter blending into a cacophony of familiar voices. The room buzzed with excitement, the sound a deceptive cover for the truth I was about to lay bare. "Dinner is ready," I announced when I felt the time was right, my voice steady, masking the adrenaline pulsing through my veins. I led everyone into the dining room, the long oak table set perfectly, each plate positioned just so, reflecting both the warmth of the gathering and the cold intent of my plan. "Wow, Mia, you really went all out," my uncle commented as he took a seat, his eyes widening at the spread before him. "It looks amazing," my aunt added, her approval washing over me like a comforting blanket. "Thank you, everyone. I just thought it was time we got together, especially with everything going on," I said, sending a pointed glance at my sibling. They caught my eye and raised an eyebrow, a challenge shimmering in their gaze. As we settled down, the atmosphere shifted from lighthearted to purposeful. I took a sip of the red wine, its rich flavor igniting my senses, fueled my resolve. "Before we dive into the meal, I wanted to discuss something that has been troubling me for quite some time," I began, sensing the air grow heavier as I spoke. "What's up, Mia?" my cousin asked, tilting her head and leaning forward with intrigue. I felt eyes pressing into me and took another breath, knowing that once I started, there would be no turning back. "As you all know, family means everything to me, and I value our relationships immensely," I continued, keeping my voice steady while watching the faces of my family, especially my parents, tense with uncertainty. "But there is a certain someone in this room who has portrayed a facade that has hurt not only me but also the family as a whole." The air shifted again. I could feel the collective intake of breath, the tension palpable. "What do you mean?" Sibling interjected, their voice strained, crackling like dry leaves underfoot. "I mean, it is time for the truth to come out. You have been living a life of deceit," I said, pulling out the bank statements from beneath my napkin, my fingers trembling despite my bravado. "Let me share some facts." Silence blanketed the room, a heavy fog of disbelief that snuffed out every lighthearted exchange. I revealed the bank statements, detailing the extravagant spending while I struggled to make ends meet. "This shows $50,000 in debt. Yet we all know you have been posting online about vacations, expensive dinners, and luxury items," I said, my heart hammering but my spirit soaring. "That doesn't mean anything. People can take loans," my siblings shot back, their bravado fading fast. "But not just loans for normal expenses. Not when you're sitting on a pile of debt and pretending everything is fine," I replied, raising my voice slightly. "I have the evidence, and it's time everyone sees who you truly are." I slid the photos across the table, images of a life they painted through social media, juxtaposed against the sobering reality of their finances. "This is not just a lie, it's a betrayal of everything family stands for. We've supported you while you lived this extravagance, thinking you needed help, but you never shared the truth with us. And that's why I invited everyone here to confront the lie you've built. It's the truth now." The table erupted with gasps, forks clattering against plates. Wait a minute, are these real? My mother whispered, her voice trembling. Tell them it's not true, she urged, looking directly at my sibling who was now visibly sweating. Because it is the truth and deep down you know it. This wasn't about me. It was about how you turned our family against each other while living in a dream. I pushed forward, every word laced with determination. Why didn't you come to me? I could have helped. My sibling's voice was desperate, panic flickering in their eyes. You don't understand. I was trying to build a life. I thought if I faked it, I could make it. They were unraveling right before me, the confident mask slipping to reveal a desperate need for validation. But you built this life on our backs, on lies, clueless as to how it hurt everyone around you, I replied, feeling empowered by their crumbling facade. This is not just about money, this is about truth. The shock registered one by one on my family's faces. I trusted you, my aunt whispered, jaw unhinged, disbelief evident in her eyes. We all did, my mother added, her voice heavy with regret. You manipulated us into thinking you needed us while you were living a lie. My sibling shot me a furious glance. I could see the gears turning in their mind, concocting excuses while the truth hung heavy in the air. They slammed their fist against the table, startling everyone. You think you can just ruin my life like this, they exclaimed, voice trembling with emotion. I thought you were different. I thought you cared. I do care, I countered, not backing down. I care more than you know. This was about stopping the cycle of lies. Someone needed to pull the curtain back. My heart raced as I took in the reactions of the family around me. Each face was a mixture of astonishment and disappointment, reflecting the devastation that years of deceit had caused. My father's brow was furrowed with concern, and my mother had begun to weep quietly. I could see them now, looking at my sibling as if they had been betrayed as well. The realization that they were duped began to dawn on them. It was sweet, intoxicating revenge. You have to understand, my sibling pleaded, more vulnerable now, pleading eyes darting to our parents for support. I was scared. I thought if I lived this way, I wouldn't have to face reality. My life feels like it's falling apart. Way it is, I replied softly, feeling the weight of their words. But you had a choice. You could have asked for help instead of pretending everything was perfect. Now it's time for honesty. The room fell silent again, except for the soft sound of my mother's sobs. I felt guilt tug at my heart, but I shook it off, knowing I had to remain strong. You constructed this narrative, and now it's time to face the truth. We need to support one another, not live in this facade. The cycle of lies has to end. I let those words hang in the air, heavy with meaning and consequence. The battle for my sibling's heart was still ongoing, but I had exposed the lies, forcing the beginning of a difficult yet necessary confrontation. My siblings stared at the table, tears welling in their eyes, the prideful mask shattered like glass underfoot. I watched as realization settled on their face. There was no escaping the truth anymore. It loomed like a shadow, impossible to dismiss. It felt liberating to stand in solidarity with my own convictions, fighting not just for myself, but for the integrity of our family as well. That moment was mine, the defeat of deception, the illumination of truth in a world shrouded in lies. And as my siblings sat there, realizing that their carefully constructed reality was crumbling fast, I felt the tension begin to dissolve, replaced by a strange sense of power. The facade was shattered, the weight felt lighter, the truth set free. A beautiful, damning simplicity. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that.